not talk about my hair because it's making all kinds of decisions and none of them are good today. We'll just ignore it for the remainder of this video. I feel like I look like I was recently out chopping down lumber, but then also eating someone's blood. My pallor is just not matching with my color choices today. Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Jordan and we are here to talk about my top 10 favorite reads. We're not talking about dogs here. From 2019. 2019 was kind of a weird reading year for me. I had a really hard time picking and choosing favorites. Like I read quite a decent amount of books last year, like 60 something, which is good for me. It's pretty average. But then I felt like none of them would qualify as being like new favorites that I would recommend vehemently to you. So I had a really hard time with my choices this time around. I think I narrowed it down to a really great stack. Glad that as the year went on, I found some really good favorites. About halfway through the year and I was like, wow, I've read like nothing good. I'm really hoping in 2020 to rectify that and read a lot more books that I love, and therefore it's not so hard to choose favorites, or maybe it'll be harder to choose favorites for a different reason at the end of the year. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into my top books from 2019. The first two books here I'm going to talk about together because they are by the same author, and that is The Honeymooners and My Favorite Half Nightstand by Christina Lauren. This one was a new release for them in 2019, and this one I think came out in 2018, but I read it at the beginning of last year. I loved both of these so much. I think I read a few other Christina Lauren books last year, and these two were by far the standouts for me. The Honeymooners is this fantastic hate to love. Like there are so many tropes in here that I just absolutely adore. We follow Olive, who is a twin sister, and her twin is getting married. And at the reception, the entire everybody gets sick from the seafood bar except for Olive and the best man, who is her sister's husband's brother. These two do not get along. They are mortal enemies. They have never really gotten along. And so being that they're the only two people in the entire wedding party who don't get sick, they go on the honeymoon that her sister had won. So they have to pretend to be married. They have to pretend to be newly married on this honeymoon retreat, and they cannot stand each other, and it's amazing. There's the one bed trope in here, which I love. They are both so sassy and so broody and just like so antagonistic towards each other. And I love everything about this. This is just so many things that I love. The other book I love by them was My Favorite Half Nightstand, which is slightly different from The Honeymooners. This is kind of like a play on the whole idea of Tinder. We follow Millie, who is a professor at a college, and her and all of her professor friends are invited to this gala that the university puts on every year. And they make it a pact that they are not going to bring each other as dates to this gala. They're going to all sign up for this Tinder-like dating app and find dates that way. Well, Millie decides to make like a secretive Tinder where it's not her. Well, it is her, but it's not outwardly her. And she gets matched with one of the guys in the group who is actually like her best friend. I loved this so much. It does have some like aspects of lying and omission that I think can make some people very uncomfortable, but I really loved their relationship. I loved the friend group dynamic. It's a bunch of guys and Millie, and I just really liked their interaction. They're all very intelligent, being that they all work at this college. They have really like nerdy jokes, nerdy inside jokes, and I just loved all the nerdy science aspects of their friend group. And I really liked the relationship between Reed and Millie. It's one of their more underrated ones, I think, probably because the cover is just not super gripping. I loved this so much. Now for the last like true romance novel that was a favorite of mine last year, we have Fix Her Up by Tessa Bailey. I think my cats were chewing on this. We follow Georgie, who is a like party clown for young kids' birthday parties, and she really wants to start a party planning business. And we have our main male character, Travis, who is a former MLB player, and due to like several injuries can no longer play baseball, and so he is looking to transition into more like a broadcasting role. However, neither of these two's families or professional colleagues take them seriously. Therefore, they decide to start fake dating each other in order to boost their credibility as being like adults. Start to fake date each other for mutual gain. And in the process, they might actually develop feelings for one another. I really enjoyed Georgie and Travis's relationship and their dynamics. Travis is kind of like that brooding alpha male type, but I really enjoy reading about men like that. I really wouldn't want to interact with a man like this in real life, but I like to read about them in my fiction. Really enjoyed his character. He's not the most memorable character. Georgie definitely stands out as being the most memorable member of this cast of characters, but I really enjoyed their relationship and how they like leaned on each other and supported each other, and I really loved it. All right, so I'm looking at my pile here and I'm like, where do we go next? I think next we're gonna go into my one mystery thriller pick of the year. My favorite mystery thriller was Lock Every Door by Riley Sager. I feel like this has been on a lot of people's favorites this year, and it's because it's phenomenal. I haven't read any of his previous books, but I will definitely be going back and reading them and reading everything that comes after this because I just was blown away by this. I find so often now that like mystery thrillers don't shock me and surprise me the way that I want them to. I just absolutely loved. We are following a young woman who is really down on her luck, and she answers this ad in the newspaper to be an apartment center for this really prestigious apartment complex in Manhattan. Finds out that it comes with quite a few caveats. She's not allowed to spend a night away from the apartment. She's not allowed to have guests over, and she's not allowed to interact with the other apartment complex residents. She finds these rules to be like weird and odd, but doesn't really think much of them until she befriends, against the rules, another apartment sitter. After that apartment sitter goes missing, she starts to tumble down this really dark rabbit hole of uncovering what's really going on in this apartment complex. It's just gothic and dark and tortured and broody and unsettling and creepy, and it had all of the like twists and the turns and the plots that I just love in mystery thrillers. I thought I had everything figured out, and then something else happened and I realized I had nothing figured out. I love this book so much. I cannot wait for his new book that comes out in July. I think it has like the same like gothic horror vibes to it, which he does so well, and I love this so much. Now let's talk about my favorite YA fantasies. I feel like I haven't had good YA fantasy in a long time. I'm very picky with my YA fantasy. Certain things that I expect from my YA fantasy, and if they don't deliver at the level that I want, then I typically give them like a poor rating. Both of these books really delivered for me this year. The first one is A Curse So Dark and Lonely by Bridget Kemmerer. This is the YA fantasy of my dreams that I've been waiting for years. I feel like since Throne of Glass, because okay. Like the first YA fantasy I ever read, okay? So it just like laid a lot of the groundwork for what I like in fantasy, okay? I haven't been able to find series that meet that level of obsession that I have, because I love the characters, the character dynamics, the plot. It's mysterious, it's engaging, it's easy to read. I love all the characters. There's a lot of romance, there's a lot of couples involved, and that's what I want in a YA fantasy. And this was perfect. This is a Beauty and the Beast retelling. We follow Harper, who is from the DC area, and she's out one night when she sees this man trying to drag this woman against her will with him. Harper runs over to rescue this woman and to save her, and as a result, does save the woman, but gets pulled along instead with this man through this portal to another world. Turns out that man has been stealing women from our world for years, trying to find a princess for the king of his land to marry. Ron is cursed. He is the beast in the situation. But if he does not find a girl to marry him within this last cycle, then he will forever be a beast, and his kingdom is basically cursed forever. Harper is like his last chance, and Harper has no interest. It's so good. It's so broody. It's so angsty. It's so everything that I love. I cannot wait to read the sequel. I haven't read a YA fantasy like this in such a long time, and it was perfection, and I loved it. Plus all the Beauty and the Beast references. Oh, so good. And then my other favorite YA fantasy from the year was The Gilded Wolves by Roshni Chokshi, which is this like historical fiction meets fantasy story. It takes place in 1889 in Paris, and we are following I can't speak French, who is the like disgraced heir of one of these like historical houses, trying to restore honor to his family name. This was just so good. I've read another book by Roshni Chokshi that I liked but did not love, and it was her middle grade series, The Arusha. I read the first book. I've never read a book from her YA stuff before. I am intrigued for what she does in the future because I loved this. We have the history surrounding the secret societies and all these artifacts, and he's trying to unravel what really happened to disgrace his family, how to restore them, what other secrets these families are hiding from him. And I just love things like that so much. And I've never read about it in like a YA fantastical setting before, because there is like this whole magic component to it. Follow a gang of friends, like a found family element, which is something that I have found I really love, especially in my fantasy. I can't wait for the sequel. Highly recommend. So now let's talk about my favorite adult science fiction thing ever. The Themis Files by Sylvain Neuvel. I listened to all of these on audiobook this year. The audiobooks are chef's kiss perfection. Very similar to Illuminae in that it's like a dossier style. So it's interview format, and that's just really well suited for an audiobook. But I loved these so much. I listened to all of them within a month of each other, I think. They're out of order. I'm sorry. First book is Sleeping Giants. Second book is Waking Gods. And then the third book is Only Human, which I always think of the Jonas Brothers song when I read that title. I follow this young girl who at the beginning of the very first book falls into a hole on her family's property, and she lands in this giant metal hand. And it's excavated and taken to a local college for study. And then when she becomes an adult, the college invites her to come and help study the origins of what it could possibly be, because they have since that incident found many other giant metal body parts around the world. And they're trying to figure out where they came from, what they are, what their purpose is. These are something that I will definitely reread in the future. I have not read very much adult or any adult science fiction. Like the closest I ever come to like adult science fiction is like Star Wars. So I loved this so much. And the final two books on this list are probably not surprising to you at all. They're probably on everybody's lists, but that would be Daisy Jones and the Six and The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, both by Taylor Jenkins Reid. You shouldn't be surprised that these are on my list. I loved these. I cried during both of them. These are like some of the very first books aside from the Themis Files that I read this year that I was like, okay, these are amazing. It follows a band in the 1970s, the Six, and then a singer-songwriter, Daisy Jones. And their record label basically puts the two of them together to work on a collaborative project. The collaborative project does better than anybody could ever imagine. At the height of their career, the band breaks apart and is never really heard from again. They all go their separate ways. So what is the thing that broke the band apart at the height of their success? It was told in an interview style format, which I know some people do not like, but I really enjoyed it, and I really liked the audiobook version of that. I really think it worked well in audiobook. I legitimately had to keep reminding myself that this was not a real band and these were not real people, because it was so realistically written that I bought everything she was selling me. I'm like, yep, Daisy Jones, yep, born here, yep, those are her parents, obviously, yes, I do know her music. No, it doesn't exist. But it felt like it should have, and this felt very much like Fleetwood Mac, like that generation of musicians. Just really loved everything about it. It takes place in the 70s, and so there's a lot of, you know, sex, drugs, and rock, and really how toxic and dangerous that was for artists. I loved it so much. Cannot wait to see what she writes next. because both of these were phenomenal, and both of them are kind of in the same vein of being like historical fictions about people who aren't real but feel really, really real, that you think are real, that were probably very heavily based on real people. So they're like biographies, but they're not. This takes place in the 50s and 60s in like the golden age of Hollywood, and we're following Evelyn Hugo. She is faced with some very hard realities in Hollywood at that time because of her racial background, her ethnicity, and she goes through these 7 husbands in the time of her career. And at the height of her career, similar to Daisy Jones, she disappears from the limelight entirely, and nobody's heard from her since, until this reporter, who is seemingly nobody, doesn't have like a glowing career or anything, is called upon by Evelyn to do a biographical story for her. And the reporter, Monique, really has no idea why she was summoned, why Evelyn thinks she's so special, why she was chosen. It just made me think so much about celebrity culture and so much about what's gone on behind the scenes, that like these people who are so wealthy and so rich and like seemingly have the world at their fingertips are still being manipulated by even wealthier people, but we just don't know their faces. I felt so much heartbreak for Evelyn. I cried at the end of this book as well. I loved her tumultuous relationship with the main female character in here, aside from her, because she is actually a bisexual character as well. So she gets there's a lot of like reflection on that as well at the time of when her success was, like in the 50s and 60s. And it's just phenomenal. I loved it to pieces. And like I said, I can't wait to read literally anything else that she writes moving forward. I'm afraid to move. Those are my favorite books of 2019. I would love to know what your favorite books of the year were. I don't think I can move to put these down. Like, I'm very nervous about what's going to happen if I move too much here. I would love to know which ones are your favorites, if you read any of these and what you thought of them this year or in previous years. Please tell me in the comments down below, and if you would like to follow me on Twitter and Instagram, my handles are on the screen for your use now. Thank you guys so much for watching. Until next time, I will talk to you very soon. Bye! I can't wait because I have no hands.